All right. Welcome, everyone, to our inaugural episode of the AI Collaborative. We are thrilled to have with us today Liz Ngonzi, founder and CEO of the International Social Impact Institute. And she's here with us to talk about collaborative AI. Welcome, Liz.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. So happy to be here with you, Brent, and of course, my friends, the Boodle. Boodle's like my friend, not an AI, but a friend to me.
Well, we feel the same way about you, Liz. To kick things off, so here in the AI Collaborative, right, we speak with thought leaders, with builders, with everyday users about the present and future of collaboration between humans, AI, and knowledge, a subject that we're very passionate about. So, Liz, would love to start with you sharing a brief overview of your
Okay,
background and
sure.
what led you to explore Gen AI.
Okay. Well, so I started off back in the dark ages in the tech industry. I worked in marketing and B2B sales at Digital Equipment Corporation and Microsystems, as well as a management consultant at Anderson. So I had a grounding in technology and really understanding how to implement technology within a business setting, right, and solving business problems. Fast forward through a bunch of different initiatives. I started working in the social impact space, and I decided to take what I learned in the private sector and deliver it to nonprofit organizations, helping them to kind of really leverage technology to do things like save money when they're delivering fundraising events, or even raise more money, leveraging technology to raise money. So I'll give you an example. So we worked with an organization that was working on cancer research. And they used to mail out 10,000 invitations for their gala, right? That raised about $1.5 million. And I was like, there's a way we can get around this. It's through using website-based event marketing, as well as looking at things like online auctions and the like. So this is kind of the world I'm coming from.
Yeah.
In 2009, when we had the economic downturn, I pitched NYU a course on how to raise money online, because a lot of nonprofits could no longer have the big budgets to raise money through events. And so I looked at it as an opportunity. And so since then, I've been teaching a number of different courses related to how organizations can leverage online fundraising, digital storytelling, and the like to engage their stakeholders. Fast forward to last January, I learned how to use ChatGPT because an intern told me about it. And I started using it. I saw how it was going to be able to help us internally as the Institute, because it just in terms of enhancing the kind of content we were able to put out. And even when we were working on events for our clients, how we could really use that to generate like things like runs of shows and the like. But then when I thought about the courses we already had developed and the coaching, I thought this would be a really great way to add efficiency to way maybe organizations can generate their stories, or leaders could generate their own personal brands and the like. So it's just an add-on to what we're already doing. And as I see these as tools that are enable other things that people are trying to do, rather than like this completely new thing that people are scared of.
Yeah, you know what I love about your story, Liz, is one of the things we often hear from people about Gen AI is, gosh, is this going to take my job? And I always
Right,
tell people all the time that if you can't get an A plus without generative AI, you're not going to
right,
get an A plus using only generative AI, because
right.
experience and expertise matters. And I love
Absolutely.
what you're doing, right? You took all this expertise and experience you had in your field, in your craft,
Yeah,
and now you're thinking about how to combine that experience and expertise with this new tool, right?
exactly.
Every industry, every organization needs to do the same thing. And folks
Yep.
like you, frankly, maybe I'm going to call you an AI whisperer, right?
Yeah.
Folks
Yeah.
like those AI whisperers like you are the folks that are going to help organizations and other people make that transition. So,
Yeah.
so you've got a lot of expertise in strategic planning.
Yeah.
So in your experience working with organizations and teaching people, what are the key considerations that leaders should think about when integrating generative AI into their strategies?
So it's so interesting. I had a conversation last week at an AI conference that we all participated in. The CEO came up to me and he said, "Look, I'm learning about all this great stuff." He's like, "But I don't even know how to start." Like, he's like, "I'm going to go back. I'm going to go talk to my team and say we've got to do all this stuff, but I don't even know what to tell them." I was like, "Well, you have to start with where your pain points are, right? Because this isn't just about integrating AI into your operations for the sake of it. It's that these are tools that are designed to address whatever specific issues you have as an organization. So whether it's that you don't, if you, maybe you are under resourced, so that can be, it can help to augment your workforce, or it's that you're trying to find ways to maybe save money in terms of the consultants you're hiring, or maybe you might even want to innovate, right? I mean, so it's really looking at what are the problems that exist in your company, in your organization, and then looking at the tools and that can help you around that. And always start with a SWOT analysis, right? And you kind of move from there. But it's very important that it starts with something you're trying to address. I'm going to share an example of an organization whose CEO I've been coaching for a while. The organization is based in Uganda. It's called Barefoot Law. And this young man founded this organization 10 years ago, and basically he was providing, legal aid services. So he started a Facebook page and said, hey, if anyone like needs legal advice, like who, people who wouldn't otherwise have access to legal services, he's like, I'm happy to answer them. And, fast forward to 10 years later, he's developed this into an organization that's, again, providing legal aid services. But because he was smart enough to integrate an AI into the whole process, what initially would have been like 10 lawyers working on providing services to people at maybe 10 people or 10 cases a day. Now with ChatGPT sort of being the front line on this, they're able to 10x their service delivery just because they have something that's coming in first as a technology solution that then the lawyer is able to say, yes, this is we're validating this solution you've come up with or not. And as a result of that, they've actually been picked up by the Commonwealth, and they're going to be rolling out into 50 countries. So far,
Oh,
they're in
wow.
three. Yeah, it's incredible, right? And again, this is basic legal aid services. He identified a problem in the market, and it's that there were a lot of underserved people in terms of legal services. But what he also recognizes is that with 10 people working for him, he really wasn't able to cover the whole country. And so by bringing in, this AI to kind of help augment his existing staff, now, they're acting like, 100 lawyers, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's just looking at things like that I think are really, really powerful.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think it's easier when you have a specific use case in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I know I have this problem and I want AI to solve it. I think
Right.
what's more challenging is, and I talk to organization leaders, I know you too, they care about their organizations. They
Yeah.
want to be ahead of the curve. They know they need to adopt Gen AI. They're actually kind of like looking for the use cases, which is
Yes.
odd, right? Like
Right.
most of
It's
the time, we don't go looking for something to solve with a tool. We have a problem
right.
to solve. But
Right.
generative AI is so powerful and so versatile, it can almost be paralyzing because I
Yes.
think what they often hear is, well, you can do anything with this. What do you want to do? Well, I don't know what I
Right.
want to do.
Right.
It's almost intimidating to be able to do anything. Steve
Hmm.
Jobs famously said that computers are bicycles for the mind. So if
Yeah.
that's true, then Gen AI is like a motorcycle for the mind.
Right.
It's a
Yeah.
motorcycle that could take you anywhere, which can be
Yeah.
a problem, actually. I don't know if do you have any advice for organizations or leaders who are like, I know I want to adopt this, but I don't know where I should start with
Well, first of all, I think it's more like a spaceship,
it.
honestly.
Yeah.
That's really like, I mean, I'm starting to see it that way. But in terms of how they should, I'm sorry, where should they
Yeah.
begin?
They know they want to adopt generative AI
Right.
in some way, and
So
they
sure.
honestly don't know where they should start using it.
Yeah.
Like, so they
So
don't have a clear use case.
right. So I think I've got to tell you, I'm as an educator, I think I always believe that you should see how other people are using things, right? And so
Mhm.
I think conferences or even participating in forums like this, right, to kind of see how folks have been using it and how companies are deploying
Yeah.
it. But yeah, so I think that's great. And I'm on like a million mailing lists, but I got to tell you, it's very hard to filter through which companies are legitimate, which ones aren't. But I think it's really looking at those organizations that have really made the investment, like the way that you guys have been around for a long time, really made the investment to deliver a product that's credible and has credible people behind it and has the right kind of context, which you'll be able to find through conferences, through credible forums online, and also through, courses like the courses I teach at NYU, right? I would say that that's where you start, is really kind of finding those providers listening to leaders who are in your industry who've already kind of implemented these implemented these systems. But it's not even necessarily about looking at the industry, because I think that a lot of this is industry agnostic. It's really looking at people, how people have applied it to solve similar problems to your companies or your organization's problems, right? Because do you have a sales problem? Do you have a marketing problem? Do you have an operational problem? Are you trying to innovate, right? It's really looking at that way rather than specifically around a specific uh, industry segment,
Got
I
it.
would say.
Got it. So obviously the name of this webinar, right, is
Yeah.
the AI Collaborative. So in your own words,
Yeah.
why does collaboration and knowledge sharing matter to users and implementers of Gen AI?
So I mean, I think that no man is an island, or no person is an island. I mean, in order for us to be able to do anything we want to do, we have to collaborate with others, and we have to collaborate with technology.
Yeah.
And so that's a starting point, right? And I feel that a lot of times we operate in these sort of silos, right? So I've got this, even if we're working in the same company, I have information in my computer, in my particular folders, but we're not necessarily sharing information, which means that we can't actually come up with the best solutions. But let's say if we're all working, in one sort of collaborative environment, we can actually harness everyone's knowledge, and then working with an AI, we can even sort of 10x, 100x that knowledge, and even come up with new ideas that we collectively wouldn't be able to on our own, right? Like I see a human being plus AI it's not actually human being plus AI, it's human being times AI, right? In terms of the
I like
impact.
that.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah. So any examples that you want to give on how leaders then can leverage Gen AI to foster that collaboration and knowledge sharing?
Sure. So I think that I'll put it within the context of Boodle, what I'm excited about. So for instance, like when let's say we're collaborating on a document or on a presentation or proposal, right? A lot of times we're using Google Suite, which is great. I'm not against Google, but and then we are able to kind of contribute and share notes on comments and stuff when we're collaborating on a document, which is great, except that let's say we're generating some of that content or enhancing some of that content using an AI, that means you have to cut and paste, and you can have a problem that way. Yet if you're in an environment like Boodle, right, and we all in that environment and we're working on creating a document or whatever it may be, we all can actually collaborate within those threads, so that nothing is left behind, and we're able to add information and notes in the same document, and being able to kind of query the AI in the same environment that the human beings are operating. So that way, I feel like it's a lot smoother, it's more efficient, and I think there's less there's less room for error. So that's how I see that being value, as well as an educator. I'm looking forward to integrating in this course that I'm teaching on May 5th, whereby I look at my students as my team members within the environment, whereby in the past, let's say if I was teaching them how to create a digital strategy for their organization, and every week I would teach them like how to create like a SWOT analysis, how to create like to do audience mapping and all that, I would give them prompt for that, and they would go off into ChatGPT at the time when I offered it last year, and kind of create whatever it was that they wanted, and then they would upload it into the LMS, and then I'd have to grade it, and then they would download it, right? It's very inefficient. Whereas the way I
Lots of
see,
steps.
right, it's lots of steps. But with this, I'm able to, first of all, deliver broadcast within Boodle to all my students, whatever it is I want to broadcast to them. And then I can go into the individual boxes and kind of coach them as they're worked on the individual pieces of their homeworks, right? So it just saves time. And again, there's less room for error, and time is the most valuable asset we have. So I don't want to have to be spending it working inefficiently. So that's what I'm excited about.
No, that's great, Will. It's great to hear. And those are great use cases for collaborative AI. So obviously, if it was easy, everyone would do it. We
Yeah.
know a number of organizations that are struggling
Yeah.
with Gen AI. So what do you think are the key challenges for leaders when they're trying to adopt Gen AI in their organizations, and any tips for overcoming those?
I think the very first thing with everybody is fear, right? There's so much negative press around AI, right? Like everyone reacted to when they saw the, you remember when they generated the images of the Pope in
Yeah.
like, right?
Right.
It was a Balenciaga or whatever it was. And everyone's like, that's going to happen to me, right? And I'm like, okay, I understand that. I get the fear thing. But the thing is, I'm actually more afraid of my email than anything else, right? That someone's going to email me and I'm going to click something and I'm going to be in trouble, right? So the point I'm trying to make is that we're all people are afraid because they've been made to be afraid of all this technology, but these are just new tools. Like if they just understand that these are new tools in the same way that we didn't always use Google, right? We didn't always use Excel, we didn't always use all these tools, but once we kind of started learning how to implement them, whether it was personally or professionally or within our companies and organizations, then they actually helped us, right? So it's kind of getting to an understanding of these are tools that we can leverage. So that's the starting point. The next is just trying, right? I think that um, a lot of platforms is still relatively accessible. So if you just want to try something, you can, right? Before you have to really commit as a whole company. And I feel that we need to have that curiosity and try, because there is, it's not like you're going to break anything if you try it, right? And just and be comfortable, just really sort of working with it. And so like just I think if anybody who's on this webinar hasn't even signed up for, let's say, for Boodle, they should just start trying it. And because that's what I did. I tried it several months ago before I even committed. And I was like, let's see, this works, it doesn't work, this great, okay, this is getting better, whatever. And I kind of hung in there. So that's it. And I've also heard so many people say, yeah, I've tried ChatGPT or I've tried all these platforms, but it gave me garbage, right? So you can't go with the first thing it generates. You've got to be willing to kind of engage with it and be very, very comfortable with learning as you go along the way. And it's like with anything, garbage in, garbage out. So you have to learn how to prompt it correctly and also communicate with it in a way that's like you would communicate with like an assistant who you need to provide instructions to so that they can assist you correctly. So those are some of the things I would say in terms of just kind of getting over the initial fear and getting over the hump of getting there, because I feel like once people are able to kind of try it, then they're like, oh, now let me see how can we integrate it into all the things we're doing. But if the human being themselves is not comfortable just with it, they're never going to recommend it to the company to use. They're never going to get, they're never going to be champions for it.
Yeah, I especially like your accuracy point. I have, we work with teams all the time and with organizations and adopting generative AI. And one of the things we do here is the same thing you just said, which is, oh, I tried it and it just gave me a bad result the first time.
Right.
And
right.
You're thinking about it as an assistant. I would say it's a very eager intern, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't
Okay.
know anything.
Sure.
And
Sure.
so it'll do anything you want. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
it's going to do it correctly, right?
Yes.
And so just like if you give an intern work, you're always going to double check it. You don't
Yes.
expect that it's going to be perfect, but why do we
Right.
give the intern the work, right?
Right.
Because it's faster, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
they can get you to a 60 or 70% solution. And I
Right.
can work from a draft much faster than I can from a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you
I
work
agree.
with the intern enough, you learn how to work with that intern, and that intern learns to work with you. And I think we're going to a place
Exactly.
where the system's
Exactly.
going to get better over time. So
100% agree with you on that. And there was something I was going to say that about the engine. Oh, okay, it left me. It'll come back to me.
yeah, when it does,
Yeah.
just let me know. We'll come right back
Yeah.
to this.
Yeah.
Okay, so I always like to talk, big thoughts, but I also like bring it down to brass tacks. So Liz, just very specifically, what's your favorite collaborative Gen AI use case? Something very practical.
I think the thing that I like to show people, because first of all, I'm a very firm believer, and I think, Francis, you can agree with me. Everybody is always about what's in it for me, right? Is that fair?
Yeah,
People start from there. So whenever I have to teach anybody about any of this, I always start with how they can apply it to their own personal brand. Because if they can see the value of that to begin with, then they can start seeing, then they can explore the possibilities. So I love to do something where I would literally download your LinkedIn profile, right, and into like a PDF document, and then I upload it into whichever platform, and then just regenerate your about section, and the magic that it creates is amazing. Even if it's not like 100% perfect, the way that it's able to remix, or let's say the way it's able to kind of pattern match in a way that we don't even think about as human beings, always seems like magic for people. And people are like, oh, wow, it can do that. And I'm like, yeah, it's a good starting point. But I think when people see that, then they're open to, okay, so now this is how then you would start to apply it to all these other things you're doing. But that's always my fun starting point, is taking something that a lot of people are not comfortable with, which is their LinkedIn profile. And they're
Yeah.
always like, yeah, I really need to kind of like work on it. And like, I really didn't, whatever, or even showing them how they can take the content they have like in a LinkedIn, in let's say a resume, and then use that to kind of update their profile as well. But I always say, if you can help someone figure out how it can help them on that point, then they'll be open to looking at it for everything else that they're doing.
So Liz, you just taught me something. I've never
Yeah.
actually tried that. So
Yeah.
to your point earlier, like, how do we learn about Gen AI, right? We learn by talking to other people. We go to
Yeah, we
or
exactly.
attend things like this. That's fascinating. Now I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, it's like people are always like, "Wow!" I'm like, it's not like some magic trick. It's just it's patterns. But I feel that if people can see something like that that's tangible and that they can
Yeah.
relate to, because that's a pain point for a lot of people, right? It's all about that
Yeah.
pain point. Then they're going to be really open to then going into, okay, this is now how you might be able to apply it to all these other things that you do, or your company, or whatever it may be.
Right. We're gonna open up
So
Q&A here in a moment, folks.
can I add one more? I
Yeah,
just want
yeah,
to, because
absolutely.
this is a little bit different, but I think it's still worth mentioning. So I sit on the board of an organization. It's an education organization that also certifies people. And we were in a board meeting in August, and one of the things they were talking about is that, typically we're delivering education live to people in English, in English speaking countries, and they wanted to be able to deliver live training in Japan, but none of the, they didn't want to necessarily, they didn't want to have to pay, they didn't have a Japanese speaking person to deliver this. And so I was like, well, we could probably have live translation using AI, right? And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. So we did a pilot with a company called Wordly AI, whereby we were able to translate into multiple languages live while the instructor was providing this education
Oh,
to
pretty cool.
right. And as a result of doing that, in February, we were actually able to deliver our first course in Japan with live translation, so audio and text based. And so this opens up opportunities for the organization now, which is a nonprofit, to be able to deliver its education worldwide, irrespective of language. And I think like something like that is so mind blowing, because that's about access, right?
Yeah, that's
As well.
fascinating, Liz.
Yeah.
I've language translation is one of those things. So I've got young kids, and
Yeah.
my wife's big on them learning another language, which I think is valuable. Don't get me wrong,
Very valuable. Yeah,
all kinds of
absolutely.
reasons. But I don't know if in the future it's going to be necessary. It's always going to be valuable, right? But like, are we
The
going to get to
mental,
a
I
place where
think, for the mental dexterity,
yes,
but yeah.
but do we actually like? Or is
Yeah.
AI going to get to a place where we could actually use those tools like you're using in real
Yeah.
time to actually
Yeah.
communicate with people?
Yeah.
Fascinating, right? Um,
Absolutely.
but that also raises the question: is just because you can doesn't mean you should, right?
Right.
So with so much of AI, folks, we're
Yeah.
going to open it up to questions. So if you've got a
Okay.
question, please drop something in the chat and Q&A. If I've got a bunch more questions in the remaining time
Okay.
we have, but please drop a question in, and you guys will get priority if you've got something to ask Liz while we have here.
Okay.
Um, Liz, let me ask you this question. Another kind of tactical question, right?
Yeah.
Any tips or tricks, any little Liz tricks you want to share about using Gen AI with the folks that are joining us?
Um, okay, so I always make sure. So I'm this person. I have 23 tabs open and I have 3 windows open. I'm that person. Okay, like
Okay,
in
got it.
terms of right browsers. That's in it because I'm very visual. So everyone's always like, "Oh, there are all these apps you can use, and they'll save." I'm like, "No, I need to see everything." But so in the past, if I wasn't sure what ChatGPT would tell me, like I would then say, "Okay, Claude, what do you think?" Or I would go into, I guess it's now Gemini. So I always would go back and forth, right? Which is a pain to do because
Yeah.
whatever. But the thing I love in Boodle is that I can actually have that conversation with all 3 of them. But instead of it being 3 different tabs, I can do it all in one place. And it's interesting to see, because you need to but you obviously need to know what the answer should look like when you're going to do something like that to see to validate which one of them gives you the best answer. But don't feel, the point I'm trying to say is, don't feel that just because you have one answer that that's the right answer. You want to be able to kind of contrast and compare with other tools. That's what I would say I like to do. Because I always like to get the best answer that I can find possibly. So that's one thing I would say. The other is, if you start kind of getting your head about, oh, I don't really know how to do this, just literally communicate to it like you communicate to a person. Like, I think it's great to have prompts. Prompts are important. But I think at the end of the day, if you can communicate clearly the way you would communicate to another human being, again, like an assistant, or like you said, an intern, right? Where you want to be specific about what it is you want, like who you are, what it is you want, the information they're going to draw from in order to give you whatever output you want, and maybe the format you want it in. I think that can help you understand that you're providing instructions in the way you would give instructions to a person. So it doesn't get in your head like, oh, am I coding? Like, what am I doing?
Right.
I don't have a computer science degree. It's not about that. It's about basic communication.
That's great. Yeah, I'm a big fan of both those, obviously.
Yeah.
Using multiple bots is just like having a team of people, right? Like
Yeah.
if I've got a team of folks at a meeting and I have something that I really want to get right, I'm going to ask
Right.
everyone's opinion.
Exactly.
What do you think? Or
Exactly.
Liz, what do you think of what David just said? And
Right.
I don't know if you've done that in AI yet, but you can do that. Like, hey,
Yeah.
Claude, what do you think
Yeah.
of GPT-4's answer, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
or if you ask
Yeah.
Llama could be snarky at times. It's
Yeah.
very interesting. But yeah, treating them like coworkers. But then to your second point, talk to them like coworkers, right? If they get
Right.
wrong, if an intern gets something wrong, do you just fire the intern and then leave the
No.
office for the day? And you're like, hey, Bobby,
Yeah.
that was a good effort, but here's
Right.
what you got wrong. Here's what we
Sure.
can do better. Can you try
Mhm.
again? And ironically enough, right, like the AIs, just like an intern, does actually
Right.
respond to that type of direction.
Right. Yeah, that's really it, right? And it even says sorry.
Yes.
Right. And so I think it's that. It's just I feel we're just still at a point where so many people are afraid of it, right? Or they
Yeah.
tried it once and they're like, oh, I gave up because it gave me a wrong answer. And it's like, just keep trying, because the reality is this isn't going away, right? And
Yeah.
it's been here for a while. A lot of people are like, oh, this is new. I'm like, no, it's just new to us using it as producers and innovators, or if we're going
Yeah.
to innovate with it. But we've been using it as consumers, right? You ever shop? Amazon's always
Yeah.
recommending things for you. That's an AI, right? Or Siri, or all these different things. So it's been around us. It's just that we haven't really recognized it as such.
Right. Well, we're at the bottom of the
Generally.
hour. Liz, thank
you.
you for being an amazing first guest on
Thank you.
the AI Collaborative. We really appreciate your time. We appreciate your thoughts. If folks want to get a hold of you, Liz,
Sure.
how can they do that?
So I'm at Liz Ngonzi on every platform, and I've also I created kind of like a little bit of a deck that shows some use cases of how I've used Boodle for different things that I've done. And on those slides, you can learn about my NYU courses, as well as how to join my mailing list and connect with me on Twitter and on LinkedIn, or I guess X and LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm always sharing very valuable information, and I like to engage with people. If you've got something cool you want to share with me, definitely shout me out, and I'll be happy to amplify and connect with you.
Great, Liz. We will make sure to include that in the follow-up materials when we attend the course. When we post this, repost this on social media, we'll make sure to include links to those things as well.
Thank you. And one other thing I just want to add is that, I didn't have much notice to prepare for this. And I was like, okay, I have 10 questions. Boodle, what are we going to do? So I used Boodle to actually answer the questions that friends posed to me. And I made that publicly available, so you can see the whole thread that I went through, to see that, like, I don't even, I misspell things. I do all kinds of crazy things, but I got to some answers fairly quickly because I didn't have a lot of time to prep. So I wanted people to kind of see that themselves, that they could do this too.
Great. Thank you, Liz. Appreciate
Thank you.
you. Appreciate everyone who joined today.
Thank you.
And join us next time on the AI.
All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.